Hey there learners! So, Jeff and I decided we'd spend the day in London and bring you some fun facts about England's capital city. The City of London is the smallest city in the UK. Greater London is huge, but the city itself is just 1.12 square miles. So, depending on whether you mean the city or Greater London, it's both the biggest and the smallest UK city. Interestingly, due to the amount of greenery compared to the population, according to the UN, the city is officially classed as a forest. The population of London is around 9 million people, which means that more people live in this city than the whole of Austria. If you ever need directions in London, maybe ask a black cab driver. They have to study for 3 years and pass a test called the Knowledge to basically become a living sat-nav. London has over 170 museums and galleries, so that will keep you busy if you enjoy that kind of thing. Over half of the London Underground runs overground. The American TV host Jerry Springer was actually born in Highgate Station in 1944 when it was used as a bomb shelter during World War II. The Underground has its own unique subspecies of mosquito not found anywhere else. Culex pipiens molestus has evolved to live in the dark for a long time, doesn't hibernate, and it doesn't need water to lay its eggs. What do you think the name of this building is? Big Ben is the name of the largest of the bells inside the clock tower, which was renamed to the Elizabeth Tower in 2012. And Big Ben is actually called the Great Bell. And just to top it off, the Houses of Parliament are actually called the Palace of Westminster. Ancient pilgrims used to walk from Westminster Abbey to Canterbury Cathedral. That was a 71-mile walk, and they gave themselves 11 days to do it. One time, I tried to do it with 2 good friends, but we only had a weekend. It did not end well. The London Eye, formerly known as the Millennium Wheel, is the second such attraction in London. Just over 100 years before, in 1895, the Great Wheel was built, but it was taken down in 1907. This is Cleopatra's Needle, a monument originally from Alexandria. In 1878, a time capsule was buried underneath containing a painting of Queen Victoria, some children's toys, a razor, copies of the Bible, a Bradshaw railway guide, and 12 portraits of the prettiest ladies in England. It's watched by 2 sphinxes, who were not originally from Africa, they were built here. The one on the right bears damage from a World War I air raid bomb. This is one of my favourite pubs in London, Ye Old Cheshire Cheese. It was built in 1666 after the Great Fire and has been visited by the likes of Charles Dickens, Mark Twain and G.K. Chesterton. Speaking of alcohol, have you heard of the gin craze? In the first half of the 18th century, London went mad for gin. Due to the conflict between Britain and France at the time, an alternative to brandy was needed, and gin was in. At the peak, average consumption was about 2 pints a week per person, or that's 2.2 gallons per year. The government had to bring in all sorts of legislation to keep it under control, but eventually it lost popularity due to the rising price of grain. You've heard of the Great Fire and the Great Plague, but how about the Great Stink of London? In 1858, a heatwave strengthened the smells coming from butchered animals, industrial waste being pumped into the Thames, and of course, human excrement in the sewers. A civil engineer named Joseph Bazalgette designed a system with extra pumping stations to move the waste away from the city and to stop polluting the Thames. His sewer system still operates today, so don't sniff at his accomplishments. We drive on the left in the UK, except on this street between the Savoy and the Strand. We drive on the right here, just this road, Savoy Court. It's well known that the English like a drink, but we also know that beer can be dangerous. On 17th of October 1814, at Muir & Co. Horseshoe Brewery, a vat of porter burst and flooded the slums. 8 people died, including 5 people attending a wake. It became known as the London Beer Flood. This is 23 and 24 Leinster Gardens. Do you notice anything odd about these buildings? Well, you shouldn't, and that's the point. When the underground tube was built, it was done using a method called cut and cover, which meant digging a hole, laying tracks, then rebuilding the ground over it. In some cases, this included building houses on top too. But these houses are just for show. Around the back, you find that the buildings are just fronts. Originally, there was going to be a vent for the steam trains below here, but the neighbours complained. Before 1916, Harrods sold a gift set that included morphine, cocaine, and syringes so that you could enjoy them. More recently, rumour has it that they offer the services of high-class female escorts. Allegedly. During World War II, displaced governments took up residence in London, effectively making it the capital city of 6 nations: France, Poland, Holland, Belgium, Norway, and the UK. The Tower of London is famously home to 6 ravens due to a superstition that if they ever leave, Britain will fall. Less well known is that it was once inhabited by a polar bear. In 1252, Henry III was gifted it by King Haakon of Norway. Now this is really important. This is not London Bridge. People ask me for directions to London Bridge all the time when what they really mean is this place, which is Tower Bridge. Construction began in 1886 and was completed in 1894 and made to look older than it is to keep in theme with the nearby medieval buildings. Above the main bridge, which opens, are pedestrian walkways that let walkers cross even when boats were passing through. However, most people were too lazy to climb the stairs and preferred to wait for the bridge to lower again. Because of this, the upper walkway became a popular spot for ladies of the night to find clients. The walkways were then closed in 1910. London Bridge was built by King John, better remembered as Prince John from the Robin Hood legends. The monument to the Great Fire is one of the examples of London's large eye-catching memorials, but it is also the reason for another special statue. Just around the corner on Philpot Lane is London's smallest statue, which commemorates the deaths of 2 construction workers who died after falling from the monument while fighting over their lunch. St Paul's Cathedral is one of the most iconic buildings in London, but it was almost built into the shape of a giant pineapple, as Sir Christopher Wren believed it to be a symbol of peace and prosperity. He settled for smaller ones on the Western Towers. I hope you enjoyed this quick tour of London. Jeff and I had a great time exploring and finding out all these wacky facts for you. So maybe if you ever visit the city, we've given you a few ideas of places you can visit that are a little bit more interesting than the normal touristy places.